Good morning to everyone.
Bienvenidos a Girls 27.
Welcome everyone to Girls 27.
It's always okay to have a little glitch. Makes it interesting. Are we okay? Bienvenidos a Girls 20 Summit on Mexico. First Lady Margarita Zavala, Ambassador Espinosa, Professor Wood, partners, speakers, and guests. As the president of the Girls 20 Summit, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the third annual summit here at ETAM, a perfect location in a wonderful city. In a few moments, I will introduce our special guests. First, I will take this opportunity with a captive audience to thank the partners who have made this summit possible. Partnership is not a luxury for the Girls 20 Summit, it is a necessity. We believe that the private sector, foundations, NGOs, and government must work together to empower girls and women. When we seek our partners, we do so strategically, and we do so with a long-term vision. We ask them to help us develop the content using their in-house experience, and we encourage them to help us set the agenda. In the end, what you have is a strong message from a diverse set of players that says we must invest in the population, and we must do it in a way that encourages the other G20, we like to call the other G20, to listen, to learn, and to watch the innovative ideas that come from these amazing delegates. So let me thank the partners of this summit. Please hold your applause. Académie Diplomatique Internationale, Air Canada, Google, ETAM, Macro Blue, Nike Foundation, Nissan, which also served as the official vehicle of the Girls 20 Summit, Norton Rose, Novo Foundation, RIM. Everyone will notice that our delegates have been given a playbook. The playbook is being given to them so they can tweet and they can Facebook their ideas. And you know, as technology plays such an important role, please know that that's what they're doing. They're not playing Angry Birds or something else. Scotiabank, the Belinda Stronach Foundation, which served as the incubator of the Girls 20 Summit, TransCanada, and Veritas, and our media partners, the Globe and Mail, Thomson Reuters Foundation, Trust Law, and MTVU. On page 18 and 19 of our program, I hope everyone has received a program on their way in, you will see the logos of more than 40 partners. We have drawn on their expertise and their networks to ensure that we make the Girls 20 Summit as available and as far-reaching as possible so that we can get as many young women aged 18 to 20 from the G20 countries and the African Union. In December, when I spun off the Girls 20 Summit from the Belinda Stronach Foundation, I reached out and recruited an amazing group of individuals. Today, less than 6 months later, I have a strong, diverse, committed, brilliant board of directors and advisory board. They don't hold back, and for this, I thank them. In an interview a few weeks ago, I was asked to describe myself. And if anyone's ever been asked to describe themselves, it's not an easy thing to do. But I thought what came to my mind first was small but mighty. This phrase describes the team behind the summit. Coralie and Amy, the backbone of the summit, Athena and Manu from ADI, who joined us here from Paris and have pulled off miracles, Mark, Antonio, David, and Red of Macro Blue, the Veritas team led by Bev and Krista, featuring Laura, Simon, Amanda, and especially Kathy, who is here with us in Mexico, Rosa and Carolina, our on-site coordinators who have come from Paris and Toronto, respectively. So, for the past week, we've been in Mexico, we've enjoyed Mexico, I think if you ask the girls, they'll tell you they've enjoyed Mexico, but they've been put through a lot of different workshops. In fact, there have been more than 25 hours of workshops before they even entered this room today. My special thanks goes to Veritas, who led the Media and Public Relations workshop. RIM, again, I mentioned they were given playbooks, but not only did RIM give them the product, they trained them on the product. Google, who provided a workshop on navigating the digital world. Kenneth Smith, who is the consensus builder of the G20 agricultural ministers, came and spoke with us very candidly about some of the opportunities and some of the challenges. And in fact, I think shared a little bit about what the agricultural ministers are thinking, which was very nice for us. Discussing political engagement, we had Narrative Advocacy, the White House Project, Athena Center for Leadership. What I feel very important is that these workshops provide our girls with the skills so that when they go home, they have the tools to put their ideas into action. So another workshop we had done was done by Scotiabank Mexico, and they provided a very in-depth workshop on business development. We also are pleased to have Nike Foundation, Global Press Institute, who spoke with the girls about the importance of storytelling. So you can have a message, but if you can't tell a compelling story, how do you bring people on side? And of course, we had Norton Rose, who addressed authentic leadership. The time and knowledge that these companies and individuals have invested in our delegates will reap benefits for years to come. If you take a look at the first 2 years of cohorts, the 2010 and the 2011 delegates, if you go on our website, you will see that they have started their own initiatives. They've put their ideas into action, and that's what we want coming out of this summit. Now, I've had the pleasure of working with many Canadian embassies around the world, and I can say without hesitation that Ambassador Radecki and her team have been absolutely incredible. From strategic advice, to important introductions, to a beautiful reception at the ambassador's home, to the site visit that they organized at Huichipan, I am absolutely in their debt. They have given us a glimpse of Mexico City that we could not have gotten without them. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank Marta Jara of Shell Mexico, Gina of Girl Up, UN Foundation, Cristina Vasquez of Air Canada, for hosting the delegates for dinner and discussions during our time in Mexico City. Please join me in thanking these incredible partners for their creativity and their commitment. So now I have the pleasure of introducing Professor Duncan Wood. I met Duncan a few months ago when I was here on a pre-visit, and immediately, I mean within seconds, I knew that we wanted to work with Duncan, his team, and to have this event at ETAM. Duncan is a full professor, director of the Program of International Relations here at ETAM. His research focuses on the reform of the Mexican energy sector, Latin American energy policy, and Mexican politics. So you can imagine at this time how busy he is. He literally flew in this morning to be with us. Duncan, please join me on the podium to say a few words.
Good morning to everybody. Buenos días a todos y a todas. ¿Cómo van? Excelente. Bueno, primero bienvenidos a nuestra universidad. Es un lugar magnífico para tener un cumbre así. Viendo el público, creo que voy a cambiarme al inglés ahorita para dar el resto del discurso a ustedes, si no les molesta. Welcome to ETAM. This is our university, and for this week, it's your university. The delegates who are here, I hope that you pass a wonderful week interacting with each other, receiving knowledge from other people, and discussing many of the issues that are at the top of the agenda, both here in Mexico and around the world. ETAM is a leading university in Mexico. It is, I always like to say, it's the #1 private university in this country. We're a leader in public policy thinking as well as academic thinking. And I think that's one of the things that I want to stress to you here today about the real interaction that you can find between academic ideas and what happens in the real world. It's something that has informed my own career to a great extent, and what I've seen with many of the young people, men and women, who have passed through my classroom. The Girls 20 is a terrific organization. It focuses on a number of very, very important world issues relating to women, but more broadly to questions of development. Questions such as education, food security, poverty, etc. The Girls 20 in Mexico is particularly relevant at this point in time. Many of the issues in this country right now are issues that relate directly to gender inequalities, to questions of access to education, for example, public insecurity and violence, violence both in the public sphere but also in the domestic sphere, and something that myself and my students discuss frequently in class, and it's a pressing problem in this country. And particularly right now, with a drug conflict which is ravaging certain parts of the country, women and girls have been drawn into the violence there. And it's one of the less examined aspects of the drug conflict in Mexico right now, but something which is incredibly urgent. On questions of public health here in Mexico, I think we need to recognize that insufficient attention has been paid to basic issues of women's health. We also have to recognize that the question of full reproductive rights for women is still a highly contested issue in Mexico. Another pressing women's issue here in Mexico is increasing opportunities within the economy. I'm not talking about quotas, I'm not talking about giving preferential treatment, I'm talking about creating real-world opportunities. As in many countries around the world, the glass ceiling preventing women from reaching the upper echelons of management is still a major issue. We have representatives here today in ITAM who show that it's possible to break through the glass ceiling in public policy, in government, in business, and in civil society. And I hope that you see them as an inspiration. The question of training for women, beyond education, but real training, applied training, vocational training that helps women to succeed within the business and public sectors. The question of aspirations and confidence. One of the things that I've noticed throughout my time here in Mexico is that many young women come into my halls of learning, and they really do need to receive that extra push to say, yes, you can do it. Not just in the Nike kind of way, just do it. But very much, which is valid, of course, being one of the sponsors, but also in the sense that all you need to do is really to be committed to something, to have the passion, and to push forward and work hard. That basic question of confidence, self-confidence, is crucial. The question of addressing the issues of women, young and old, in Mexico is not just about changing the recipe that we have already. If we talk about the relationship between women and development, academic studies and public policy studies throughout the years have shown that it's not just a question of taking the old established theories of development, adding in women, producing a new recipe, and stirring around. Rather, it has to be seen about the ways in which we must address the particular challenges facing women, but also addressing their particular attributes, which are quite distinct from those held by young men and older men, and how we can most effectively harness those attributes and most effectively address those challenges in ways that improve their lives and the development of this great country, Mexico. Now, ITAM, as I said, is a prestigious university, and we have a number of women who have come out of ITAM who have gone on to become very famous and influential in society. Perhaps the example that is most commonly referred to is Georgina Kessel, who was the energy minister here in Mexico and is now in charge of the national mechanism for financing public works in this country. But it's been my pleasure and my honor to educate a number of highly influential women as well. My program is very, very young. We're only about 15 years old. So these are not truly senior women. They're young women, but it's incredible to see what they've achieved already. For example, one of my former students, Senator Adriana Gonzalez, educated from ITAM about 10 years ago, went straight into the National Congress, immediately became the head of the North America Committee of Foreign Affairs within the National Congress. She was 28 years old at the time. And it was extraordinary to see her there. 3 years later, she became a senator. And she went on to become the chair, the president of the Foreign Affairs Committee for North America within the Senate. That's an extraordinary story. And do you know what the first thing she said to me when she saw me again after she'd become a senator? She said, "Not bad, is it?" not bad. She says, I didn't always get the 10s in your class, but I did all right, didn't I? And that was a key thing, is to recognize that it's not about the academic achievement. It's about somebody who was driven and passionate about what she did. Another example, a brilliant young lady called Ana Paula Azuela, who left ITAM, went to study, took a job with a consulting firm, Boston Consulting here in Mexico, was then moved off to the United States. They then paid for her to do a master's degree at Stanford University. She then came back to Mexico, and she's one of the leaders in her field here in Mexico. Another one of my students, Hazel Blackmore, who left ITAM, started a master's degree in the United States, came back, worked as a colleague of mine here at ITAM for a number of years, and is now in charge of the Fulbright Garcia Robles Commission here in Mexico, determining the educational future of many of Mexico's young people as they seek to go and study in the United States. Natalia Saltalamacchia, one of my most brilliant students, I remember, who went on to go and do a master's degree at SAIS in the United States and in Bologna in Italy, and then did her PhD at the Complutense in Madrid, spending some time at Oxford University, and is now one of my colleagues here at the university, educating a new generation of young women. Alfonsina Peñalosa, a great student who went to do a master's degree at the London School of Economics in gender and development, came back to Mexico and is the deputy director of a think tank called Fundación Ethos that works in questions of gender and development, transparency, and accountability, and runs a particularly excellent website, if you have an interest in Mexican politics, called Arena Electoral, which provides a resource for young people to evaluate the candidates at this time of elections. Manuela Garza, a student who came to me to want to write her thesis on questions of women in the maquila industry in northern Mexico. And based upon that thesis, got a scholarship to go to the New School of Social Research in New York, where she did a master's degree and now works for an organization which evaluates budgets and pushes the question of budget transparency, helping people to understand how public money is spent. And one of the major areas that they examine is how money is spent on men and women. Leticia Jauregui, a great student who studied international relations with us and economics as well here at the university, did her master's degree at University of California, Davis, came back, set up an organization for the wives of migrant workers. And through that organization, they provide training on how to set up micro businesses, making salsas y mermeladas, small products that can be sold in the local and the national market. An incredible opportunity for many of these women to set up their own businesses. And lastly, I would like to talk about perhaps my favorite former student, Dina Buchbinder, who is here today sitting in the second row. Dina is an extraordinary young woman, and I hope you get the chance to meet her today. A number of years ago, she came to my office and she said, Duncan, I have a crazy idea. And I said to her, Dina, most of your ideas are crazy. And she explained her idea, which was to set up an organization for children in marginalized areas of Mexico, and through the medium of sports and play, to teach them basic messages about the United Nations Millennium Development Goals, peaceful resolution of conflicts, gender equality, public health, and development. Beginning in 3 schools in Mexico, she's now touched over 45,000 young people in a period of 5 years in this country. Her program is being considered to be part of the national curriculum for education at the primary level. What Dina achieved was to create an organization, something that she was truly passionate about, and no matter what obstacle came up, she pushed on. Now, support from many people was crucial in that, and Farah's words earlier on about the need to have partners as a necessity is crucial here. Dina could not have done what she has achieved, and none of the women that I've mentioned to you could have achieved what they had actually ended up achieving without having partners in a strategic fashion. My hope is that one day, some of the girls and boys who have passed through Dina's program, which is called Deportes para Compartir, or Sports for Sharing, my hope is at one point I get one of those boys or girls showing up in my classroom here at ITAM. I'd love to have a graduate of Deportes para Compartir. And maybe that young person will go on to make an impact in Mexican business, economy, and society. Now, all of these young women that I've described to you, it's been my great honor to have contact with during their time here at ITAM and afterwards. They have a desire and ambition to succeed, to leave an imprint upon Mexico, to overcome the multiple challenges that have been put in their way. Education was crucial for them, and mentors was crucial for them. I urge you all to find a mentor in this life. It helps determining your future path enormously. All of these women had a willingness to change and adapt to changing circumstances. It wasn't always easy to keep on the same path, but they found a way. And they all had, as I've said many times already, a passion for what they do. The challenges facing Mexico today are many. Grinding poverty, a lack of opportunities, the toll on women that has been left by migration and public insecurity. And one thing that I must recognize is that in this time of elections here in Mexico, it's so disappointing that none of the candidates has a clearly defined agenda for addressing issues relating to women. I hope that this week's sessions, the debates and dialogue in which you will engage, will help to define a brighter future for young women here in Mexico and around the world. Thank you very much for your attention.
Now you can see why it took about 2 seconds for us to decide to work with Duncan and to have the event here at ITAM. I'm just going to ask, for those who have their cell phones on, if you could actually turn it off. We're getting a little bit of feedback. So before I introduce Ambassador Espinosa up, if you could please turn your cell phones off. Gracias. It's now my pleasure to introduce Ambassador Espinosa. Ambassador Espinosa was appointed Secretary of Foreign Affairs on December 1st, 2006. She has been a member of the Mexican Foreign Service since September 16th, 1981, and was promoted to ambassador. I'm sorry, I lost my page. It was promoted to ambassador in January 2000. From 2002 until November 2006, she served as ambassador to Austria, Slovenia, and Slovakia, and as a permanent representative to the international organizations in Vienna from 2001 to 2002, as ambassador to the Federal Republic of Germany. Please welcome me in joining Ambassador Espinosa. I've heard so much about you. Our girls are very excited to meet you, and we are very honored to have you speak with us today.
First of all, I want to make sure that the interpretation is working well. A ver si hablo en español. Is your interpretation functioning well? ¿Sí? Muy bien. Ok. Licenciada Margarita Zavala, presidenta del Consejo Ciudadano del Sistema Nacional para el Desarrollo Integral de la Familia. Señora Farah Mohamed, presidenta de la Cumbre. Doctor Duncan Wood, director académico, director del Departamento Académico de Relaciones Internacionales del ITAM. Muy distinguidas jóvenes participantes en esta cumbre, amigas y amigos. Realmente me siento muy privilegiada de poder darles a todas ustedes hoy aquí la bienvenida a México, sobre todo a quienes nos visitan desde otros países y a nuestra muy digna representante de México en este grupo de jóvenes que están pues ya desde muy temprana edad involucrándose en los temas cruciales de los retos de nuestro mundo. En representación de la presidencia mexicana del Grupo de los 20, les quiero agradecer que me den la oportunidad de compartir con ustedes este foro, de comentarles un poco cuáles han sido las líneas de trabajo de la presidencia mexicana del G20 y quizás también de añadir algunos temas sobre la situación de las mujeres y la forma en que el gobierno del presidente Calderón ha venido trabajando en estos temas. El encuentro que ustedes han sostenido en estos días y por el cual los felicito, he visto el programa. Es un programa muy extenso, realmente creo que no les han dejado mucho tiempo libre para conocer mucho de México. Espero de todas maneras que no sea la última vez que vengan a México y que tengan oportunidad de disfrutar más del bellísimo país que tenemos aquí los mexicanos. En el marco de la presidencia del G20 por parte de México, el gobierno mexicano ha desarrollado una política muy amplia para obtener insumos y puntos de vista de otros actores distintos de los gobiernos que integran formalmente el Grupo de los 20. Reconocemos, por supuesto, que la realidad que viven los países, no solamente los del G20, sino también aquellos que no están en el G20, hace indispensable que en la toma de decisiones se tomen en cuenta las prioridades y las situaciones que se enfrentan en todos esos países. Por esa razón, y muchas de ustedes que están aquí con nosotros vienen de países que no están participando en el G20. Por esa razón, México ha tenido una labor muy intensa para poder obtener los insumos y las preocupaciones de los países que no son G20. ¿Cómo lo hemos hecho? En primer lugar, a lo largo del proceso preparatorio hemos invitado a las reuniones técnicas, las reuniones ministeriales en distintos aspectos, a países que no son miembros del G20, como invitados, pero ¿para qué? Para recibir precisamente sus opiniones sobre los temas que más les preocupan. Este fue el caso, por ejemplo, de la reunión de cancilleres del G20 que celebramos en febrero pasado en Los Cabos y que fue, por cierto, la primera vez que los cancilleres del G20 se reunieron. Ahí participaron también cancilleres de países que no están participando en el G20. Además de este outreach con gobiernos que no son miembros del G20, hemos también desarrollado una labor intensa para tomar contacto con otros actores importantes en las sociedades, con los jóvenes. Aparte de recibirlas a ustedes en esta oportunidad en México, tuvimos ya el Youth 20, en donde más de 130 jóvenes estuvieron desarrollando un trabajo, la verdad, muy valioso de negociar entre ellos un documento, una declaración que reflejara sus puntos de vista sobre todos los temas que vamos a abordar en la cumbre. Tuvimos también, hemos tenido una serie de encuentros con organizaciones de la sociedad civil mexicanas e internacionales dedicadas a los distintos temas de la agenda del G20, incluyendo la agenda en materia de agricultura, que es uno de los temas en los que ustedes han estado dedicadas a abordar. Hemos tenido también reuniones con representantes de los sindicatos. Los sindicatos, ¿por qué los sindicatos? Porque en el contexto internacional actual, por supuesto que el tema del empleo es uno de los temas fundamentales. Entonces hemos tenido un acercamiento y un diálogo permanente con los representantes de los sindicatos. Hemos tenido también un diálogo permanente con el sector privado que se ha agrupado en lo que se conoce como el B20, Business 20, en donde a través de grupos de trabajo, representantes de compañías del más alto nivel a nivel global se han dado a la tarea de elaborar recomendaciones específicas para los líderes. Esto les comento porque creo que es importante para ilustrar por qué esta reunión y por qué su presencia aquí y por qué el trabajo y las deliberaciones que ustedes han venido teniendo en estos días y que sé que todavía van a tener esta semana son tan importantes. Y quiero decirles también de parte del presidente de la República, Felipe Calderón, que él se hará cargo de llevar a todos los líderes, a que todos los líderes conozcan las recomendaciones que ustedes decidan hacer como resultado de sus deliberaciones en estos días en la Ciudad de México. Además del tema de agricultura, México ha establecido una serie de prioridades en su presidencia. Y simplemente para que ustedes tengan el contexto completo, el contexto general, me gustaría compartirlo con ustedes. En primer lugar, facilitar a través de un entorno apropiado, una discusión franca y abierta para fomentar la estabilización económica como condición del crecimiento, lo cual requiere inevitablemente de una intensa coordinación de políticas. En segundo lugar, promover el fortalecimiento de los sistemas financieros y el fomento de la inclusión financiera. En el tema financiero, déjenme enfatizar que el tema de la inclusión financiera ha sido un tema que se ha puesto en la agenda por primera vez en esta presidencia a cargo de México. ¿Por qué? Porque México es un país en desarrollo que tiene conciencia de la importancia de poder ampliar los servicios financieros al mayor núcleo de su población. Y por esa razón hemos podido desarrollar experiencias exitosas que han servido como base para muchas de las deliberaciones en este tema. En tercer lugar, también avanzar en la instrumentación de las reformas regulatorias que ya se han adoptado, es decir, México ha puesto énfasis también en que no solamente debemos tratar de crear nuevos compromisos, sino también asegurarnos que los compromisos que se han tomado en años anteriores se cumplan. Y esa es la razón por la cual se está haciendo un seguimiento muy puntual de cómo van avanzando estas reformas que se han ya acordado en ocasiones anteriores. También un tema, y ese es el que está muy relacionado con lo que ustedes están deliberando, un tema central en la agenda de esta cumbre es la cuestión de la seguridad alimentaria y la necesidad de buscar medidas para evitar la especulación en los precios de los alimentos y avanzar en la lucha contra el hambre y la desnutrición a nivel mundial. Y en quinto lugar, también hemos puesto como uno de los objetivos centrales el promover un crecimiento verde y la implementación de programas que combatan simultáneamente la pobreza y que al mismo tiempo contribuyan a combatir la deforestación y en general que esté orientado a la lucha contra el cambio climático. Es decir, la agenda de la presidencia mexicana está combinando una serie de temas que tienen que ver con la estabilidad financiera, que ha sido tradicionalmente el punto central de las reuniones del G20, con una agenda de más largo plazo, de mediano y largo plazo, encaminada al crecimiento y al desarrollo. La estabilidad financiera no es un fin en sí mismo, la estabilidad financiera es un instrumento para poder generar las condiciones necesarias, indispensables para el crecimiento, para el desarrollo, para la creación de empleos y para la instrumentación de políticas públicas que nos lleven a un crecimiento verde. Si me permiten, ahora quisiera yo hacer algunos comentarios sobre la cuestión de la situación de la agenda de niñas, jóvenes y mujeres en México. El doctor Wood señalaba que en México estamos enfrentando un problema serio en materia de drogas. Yo quisiera en ese sentido puntualizar para comentarles que sí, sin duda, las drogas son parte de un problema que ha generado violencia, pero que el problema que está enfrentando México hay que ubicarlo más como un problema de crimen organizado transnacional que afecta a la seguridad de las familias. Las drogas, por supuesto que todos sabemos que hay que evitarlas, son un negocio ilícito, generan violencia, generan destrucción de todo tipo. Pero a nivel del Estado, Lo que aquí está ocurriendo es que el Estado está haciendo frente al crimen organizado transnacional, que es el que amenaza la seguridad de las familias, es el que amenaza y en muchas ocasiones, en efecto, hace víctimas también a las mujeres y a las jóvenes. En el tema de salud, me parece importante también, para que ustedes tengan una visión muy actual de cómo estamos en México, compartirles la importancia de las medidas que se han impulsado en los últimos 6 años en México y que nos han llevado a logros que no se ven en muchos otros países en desarrollo, y quienes vienen aquí de países en desarrollo lo podrán constatar. Desde el primer día de su gobierno, una de las primeras medidas que anunció el presidente Calderón fue que cada niño que naciera, cada niño, niña mexicano que naciera bajo su mandato contaría de por vida con servicios de salud para él, para su madre y para toda su familia. A lo largo de estos 5 años, esta política pública en materia de salud se ha extendido hasta lograr el día de hoy ya prácticamente la cobertura universal de salud. Además de eso, y poniendo énfasis en el tema de las mujeres, un gran énfasis se ha puesto en los servicios de salud materno-infantil. Por eso, muchos de los nuevos hospitales que se han abierto han sido precisamente eso, centros de salud materno-infantil. ¿Para qué? Para atender a las mujeres que antes tenían que recorrer muchos kilómetros para poder ir a dar luz a un centro de salud. Actualmente, realmente, cualquier mujer, ya sea que esté afiliada o no a alguna de las instituciones públicas de salud del Estado, si requiere servicios de salud, los recibe de manera automática presentándose en cualquier centro de salud del gobierno, en cualquier lugar de la República. En ese sentido, creo que estamos registrando un avance histórico, un avance que las mujeres de México debemos de defender, debemos de exigir que se mantenga, y creo que este es un tema que afortunadamente, una vez que se ha logrado, será imposible que ningún gobierno que venga después pueda echarlo atrás. Ha habido una política de género, de introducir medidas, acciones orientadas a la equidad de género a todos los niveles. Les comento, por ejemplo, en el gobierno, cada una de las dependencias del gobierno, incluyendo la Secretaría de Relaciones Exteriores, estamos obligadas a ejercer un cierto monto de nuestro presupuesto para dedicarlo a políticas tendientes a la equidad de género. En este gobierno también se ha aprobado una ley para la vida de las mujeres sin violencia, que es muy importante porque eso ha dado la base jurídica para crear instituciones a fin de que las mujeres que sufren violencia en cualquier lugar, en su casa, en su trabajo, en cualquier lugar, tengan a dónde acudir. Hemos también visto la aprobación de la ley contra la trata de personas, uno de las expresiones más crueles del crimen organizado, y en donde por primera vez tenemos en México una ley. Sin duda nos queda mucho camino por recorrer a nivel estatal, a nivel de los estados. México es una república, entonces los gobiernos de los estados tienen competencias en distintos aspectos. A nivel de los estados, desafortunadamente, todavía hay muchos pendientes, pero creo que estamos en la dirección correcta. Y creo que en ese sentido sí las invitaría, aunque no es un tema de los que ustedes están abordando en esta reunión, sí las invitaría a que hagan un pronunciamiento para que en todos los países del mundo se se puedan contar con leyes contra la trata de personas, con leyes contra la discriminación contra las mujeres, leyes contra la violencia de género, en fin, todas estas leyes, bases, instrumentos legislativos que son indispensables para que nosotras, las mujeres, jóvenes, niñas, para que todas podamos tener la certeza de que contaremos con la protección y con el lugar en la sociedad que merecemos. Podríamos realmente seguir platicando mucho más. Aquí el doctor Woods nos ha comentado de muchos temas, nos comentó de muchos ejemplos muy destacados de jóvenes mujeres que han estudiado aquí en el ITAM y que han sido realmente muy exitosas. Y yo quiero decirles que en mi familia vemos varias mujeres que hemos tenido la fortuna de contar, de ser parte de este gran país en donde hemos logrado salir adelante sin necesidad de apoyos más allá de nuestro esfuerzo diario, de nuestro trabajo diario y de nuestra dedicación. Y una de ellas, que es una de mis hermanas, es precisamente también una egresada de aquí del ITAM. Estudió economía aquí en el ITAM y después hizo una especialización también aquí en el ITAM en el tema de evaluación de proyectos. Y ella es actualmente la tesorera de la República. Así que creo que si ustedes miran con mucho cuidado a su alrededor en sus países, a nivel internacional, encontrarán muchas mujeres para inspirarse. Pero les diría que la inspiración más importante debe de ser el amor por sí mismas, la valoración de sí mismas y su voluntad de luchar y de alcanzar los sueños. Qué bueno que están aquí precisamente desde esta edad tan temprana en ese camino. Las felicito y les deseo muchísimo éxito ahora y en su vida futura.
Ambassador Espinosa, thank you very much. And I will say that in your comments, you were making reference to the fact that Mexico has taken extraordinary measures to ensure that the private sector, the not-for-profit sector has been involved in the discussions, and we very much appreciate it. I know from speaking from Canadian not-for-profit organizations and NGOs, the inclusion of other players other than government has really made the experience of the G20 in Mexico quite amazing. So we thank you for this. Gracias.